The year was 2014. Your name was Google, and you didn't feel anything. Dark always had a strange fascination with you. He claimed it was because you intrigued him. He said he admired every bit of you on multiple different occasions. Behind your back, he called you a disgusting hunk of metal. When he didn't think you could hear him, he compared you to a faulty smartphone. The insult changed depending on how angry he was. Useless, broken, annoying, pathetic. But sometimes that was different. Sometimes he showered you in compliments. One day, he bragged about you to a man with an incredibly pink mustache. You were told to register the man under the name of Wilford Warfstache. You chose not to comment on how strange his name was. Then, Dark had called you perfect, intelligent, helpful, observant. You still weren't sure which set of statements to believe. You were drawn back to the moment when Dark cursed under his breath. You blinked, then shifted your gaze to your owner. He didn't look at you, but you could tell by the huff that he knew you were looking at him. He held your arm in a tight grip, his face scrunched into an expression of concentration and anger. He hated wasting time on you, but he couldn't afford to have you break. Earlier, Dark had opened the panel on your forearm to tinker a bit. As he pushed and pulled wires around, you wondered what he had planned in his head. He never told you what he was going to do when he tested on you. You never found out unless he told you about it. He had done that on purpose. When you had agreed to let him be your administrator, he immediately went in and switched a thing or two around. Your system warnings were immediately disabled. From then on, you never knew anything was wrong until something bad had already happened. Your eyes glanced at the compact bundle of wires in your arm. You didn't expect anything to be weird about it. It was even worse when your synthetic skin was removed and you didn't mind it then. For the first time, you wondered if you should have been disgusted by the sight. A human would have been if they looked into their arm to see the bone and muscle beneath the fleshy surface. You knew you weren't human, but for once, you wondered what it could have been like to be one. How does it feel? Dark paused for a moment, like he had to stop and comprehend that you could actually speak. However, the confusion quickly wore off and he resumed his work. It isn't too bad. A few of your wires are starting to fray, so I get shocked every once in a while, but... No, not my wires. You interrupted. The corner of his lip twitched, like he wanted to scold you for not letting him finish. He didn't do that. Instead, he waved a hand for you to continue. I mean, how does it feel to be human? There was a silence for a long, tense moment. Finally, he clicked your arm panel closed and faced you for the first time that day. Good question. I can't remember. The next time you asked, he didn't respond. The year is 2020. Your name is Oliver, and you think you're worrying. You know you aren't supposed to feel emotions. You have wires for veins, you have electricity for blood. You are an amalgamation of technology and plastic casings and fake skin. Emotions shouldn't be possible for you, yet here you are. Your battery is beating an anxious mess of metaphorical Morse code, and you wish you had the time to search up what it was saying. You and many others were invited to the most incredible and extravagant gathering of the century, by none other than Wilford. You aren't sure how he found you. Then again, he wasn't known for his logical methods. the laws of reality didn't exactly apply to him. You could have asked, "When did you find me?" in the place of "How did you find me?" and you were convinced that he'd somehow give you an answer that fit neither question, yet also worked perfectly. You're standing alone when Dark stops in front of you. His hands reach up to fix his tie, to straighten his pearly white suit jacket. You haven't seen each other in years. Since May 5th, 2017, actually. You remember seeing Wilfred there too. And still, he knows how to intimidate you. He terrifies you. But you'll never admit that out loud. How have you been, my little robot? Oh, I've been great. It takes everything you have to not back away from him. Instead, you force a friendly smile. How about you? Have you learned how to properly apply your cheap eyeliner? Huh. I see you've developed quite the snarky attitude. Yes, well, you taught me well back then. He lets out an amused laugh at that. Your lips pull upward into a smirk. Other than that, you don't move. He looks off to the side where Dr. Markiplier is arguing with the host, and your eyes follow. You hear the doctor say something about how bloody bandages can hurt someone's eyes. The host begrudgingly reminds him that he doesn't have eyes. How does it feel? Your smirk falls as you turn back to Dark. A second passes, then 2, then 3. Finally it clicks. You decide to play along. It isn't too bad. They aren't arguing too loud, but... No, not them. Even if you hadn't been looking at him, you still would have noticed his amused expression. What I mean is, now that you can experience emotions, how does it feel to be human? There's a twinge of anger and remorse in his tone. You want to think he regrets treating you so horribly. The memories still hurt, but you don't let it ruin your mood. Instead, you set a reminder to ask him about it later. Years ago, you wouldn't have even considered the idea of emotions. Now you couldn't imagine living without them. But that was the thing, wasn't it? Emotions are what made people feel human. Without them, you weren't really living. You were just existing. I love it.